Today we're going to talk about tetrachord scales or key families. And here is the worksheet that we're going to use that I am going to send to my students shortly after I make this wonderful video, which I'm sure is going to be great. I do actually have 3 students who did show up in the snow. The rest of us are going to, I'll email it to you. The tetrachord scales, and feel free to ask questions. Just jump in it. Act like the video thing is not here. The first thing I need to tell you is, since we've already learned the 5 finger patterns, if you notice at the very top one that's totally filled out, the 5 finger pattern is the first 5 notes of the 8-note scale. So the one that we already know the best and it's easiest to see is C, D, E, F, G, which is the first 5 finger pattern that we learned because that's the easiest one. And then the rest of the scale, or they call them key families here, is A, B, and it brings you back to C. So that's the one that's at the very top. What I wanted to show you is how to think about it so that then you can transfer your knowledge of the C scale, which we've already been doing, or key family, or sometimes they're called tetrachord scales when we do it like this. Tetra means 4 notes, then 4, because this is 8 notes, so it's 4 plus 4, is so you can transfer the knowledge of the C scale to all your other scales. And this is how we think of it. The first note we call tonic, same thing as what we've been calling in the 5 finger patterns. And so tonic is just what the Greeks made up a long time ago. It just is. You just have to memorize it. And then from C to D is a whole step. And we remember it's a whole step because whole steps are 2 notes whole steps are 2 notes that are side by side with 1 key in between them on the piano. So 2 keys on the piano, they're side by side with 1 key. In C to D, have a black key in between. You can also have a whole step be 2 black keys, and then there'd be a white key in between. And then the other way, and I know this is review for my class, that a whole step could be is a white to a black, and you'd have a white key in between. So that's the whole step. The other knowledge that we need to know, of course, is the half step, which is 2 keys side by side on the piano with nothing in between them. So it's 2 whites here, or white to black, black to white, whichever way you want to think of that. White to black, black to white. That's the half step. There's only 2 kinds of steps, half steps and whole steps. So that's the way half steps and whole steps work. So if we go on here then, C to D is a whole step. What's D to E then?
Whole step.
So that's the whole step. And then what's E to F?
Half step.
That's the half, because there's no black key in between. And then that's the first 4 notes. So if we divide this in half, what's F to G?
Whole steps.
That's the whole. And G to A?
Whole step.
And A to B?
Is a whole step.
Yes, that's the whole. And then B to C?
Half.
That's the half, yes. And so now, this is very interesting because when you take the scale and you divide it into 2 parts, 2 equal parts, the tetrachords, you get the exact same thing. This is 3 whole steps and a half, and this is 3 whole steps and a half. And so it makes scales easier to think about when you know it's 2 equal things. 3 holes and a half, 3 holes and a half. That also
Is that for every key?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's for every major. We're doing major scales. Should have made that clear. This is for major scales. Minors are a little bit different. The half steps change. So here is the half step, and here is the half step. The top and the top. Okay? How we're going to finger this, we're going to get to the fancy fingering in just like 2 weeks, but how we're going to finger this so we don't have to, we can think about whole steps and half steps rather than the fancy fingering that we've been doing where we do the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 and go under, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead of doing that fingering, I would invite you to think of left hand as the first 4 notes, 5, 4, 3, 2, and right hand as the second 4 notes, 2, 3, 4, 5. What I do with my, C is tonic on the first note, and C is tonic on the last note, right? So as you get into the harder ones, it becomes a little more complicated. It's pretty easy here. So what I like to do is find the C's first. Find tonics, C and C. And then fill in, they should be a little closer than that. Fill in, okay, so tonic, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay, got it. Then play it. So find your notes first before you play it. That's a lot easier and when you're first starting. Then after you've done them for several days, they'll start to become easier. The arrangements of black and white notes will start to become easier. There's one more thing about this page that I'd like to tell you that's very interesting is that the way it's arranged, the very top one, C, is no sharps and no flats, right? It's all white notes. Then the first one is the key of what? I mean, the one after that, the key of G, and the key of G adds 1 black note. So it adds, and this is sharp, so it adds 1 sharp. And then the second one is the key of D, and add, so then now it's going to be 2 sharps. And we're going to add 1 black note each time. So A is 3 sharps, E is 4 sharps. Do you see how I wrote them for you out to the far left side there? And then we just go down the road 5, 6. Now, to the far right side, they wrote key of G, key of D, key of A, and they wrote what the sharps are for you to fill out. This is very interesting the way this works. It's pretty cool. I think it's incredibly cool and logical that each time you add a sharp, you add a black note, you keep the ones you already had and you add 1 new one. And that's what they're showing you over to the right there. And so it becomes a very logical process to play the sharp scales. By the way, the flat scales are equally as logical, just in a different way. So it's pretty cool, and it's not that hard to be able to figure out how sharp scales fit together. And the one other thing about this whole process that probably wouldn't take you that long to figure out, but I'll just show you that we, as musicians, we do this in a circle. And we call it the circle of fifths. So this circle, I didn't allow it for circle of fifths, is how scales are presented as you start to do them more. And it is 0, C is right here, and then we go 1, 2, 3, kind of starts looking like a clock, 5, 6. This is the sharp side of the circle of fifths, and then this is the flat side. And by the time you do all fifths around here, this flat side leads you right back to C in fifths. So fifths. So a fifth, we've done quite a bit with intervals. I think we've emailed there some already. So if we go from C up a fifth, you have to count the white note you start on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ellie, can you see okay? Mm-hmm. So the fifth would be up what?
5.
Up to what letter, David?
Oh,
G.
G.
G. So on our paper, we have C as no sharps, no flats. G was listed as the one with one sharp. And so then if I go up 5 from G, what note do you get to?
D.
D. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The hardest thing about doing this counting by fives is you got to make sure you count the one you start on. Because, you know, when we all play board games, our whole life we've played board games, don't count the one you start on. Now I'm asking you to count the one you start on as the first one. So, and what I do with most of my students when we're counting circle of fifths, because sometimes you're not even at a piano, or you know, you don't not really thinking. I just use my hand. So C, D, E, F, G, D, G, A, B, C, D, you know, like that. So if you just use your hand as your gauge, you can pretty quickly find C up a fifth is G. G has one sharp. G up a fifth, you just said it is D.
D.
D has two sharps. And D up a fifth
A.
is A. A has three sharps. What's A up a fifth then?
E.
A, B, C, D, E. E has four sharps. And then E up a fifth. E, F, G, A, B. And use the piano, but you know, once you start to get into the music alphabet more, you could also use your fingers.
Okay, and then what comes after
Only I went
the key
E,
of
F,
F?
G, H.
No, yeah. No H's.
No H.
And then, of course, it's telling you on the paper too, right? Because they did it by the circle of fifths. And then the last one, to get to 6, you go to, from B up a fifth is
F.
F.
Sharp.
Except for
What's F sharp?
F. The
I mean,
sharp
what's the-
is the next key up to the right of F. The black key.
Okay, so, but we started with F, so we have
So
F,
we can't
C,
use, right? So
G, da,
C.
da.
thank you.
anyway,
So look at that. Think about this. Do you remember that the first sharp you put in G was F sharp?
uh-huh.
So we had to put F sharp in.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I go down here and I want to play a sharp scale that starts on F with 6 sharps, I have to start on F sharp because that's the first sharp you play. I can't start a sharp scale on F natural. I can't start a sharp scale on F natural because the first sharp we put in is F sharp. I have to start that sharp scale on F sharp. Because the very first sharp you put in is F sharp. So
Okay,
there
so-
doesn't exist a sharp scale on F natural. That's going to be a flat scale.
So, I don't get it. So we have F, C, G, D, A,
Uh-huh.
and then what?
After
I mean-
A is E.
So, but what, I don't get what that 6th sharp would be.
E.
Just plain old E?
Uh-huh. What is E sharp? E sharp is actually F.
Yeah.
That's that. So what I'm talking about you and I are talking about two different things.
Okay.
You're asking me about what note to sharp, and I'm
The
talking
6th.
about what note to start the scale on.
Oh, okay.
This is what note to start the scale on, and you're talking about what note to sharp when you're playing
When
the
you're
scale.
playing 6 sharps. Okay.
Yes. Okay, so you and I are talking about two different things. Yes. So, yes, so if I am playing the key of G, I'm going to start on G, and the first time I play a sharp is F sharp, F sharp. If I'm playing the key of D, I'm going to start on D, and I'm going to sharp F, and then I'm also going to add C sharp. Yes. So you and I, I just had you confused because I was talking about the note to start on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So, other questions?
I gotta think about this.
Yes, it is something to think about. And once you start doing it, it does become easier. And there is one more thing. You know how, Judy, you're just talking about the actual sharps themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. They also they go by fifths also. And you were just doing that as you saw that.
So once you learn the patterns for each of these keys, then if you have a piece that is written in G and you want to play it in D, you can just go ahead and just play the music, but you use the finger pattern from D.
It's much easier to do that if you, that's called transposing.
Of course, a lot of
And
practice.
It's much easier to do that if you've had experiences with the scale and the chords from D. I mean, you would not have a chance of getting it right if you hadn't had the experience of understanding D.
Well, I always wonder why my voice teacher could transpose so easily. You know,
because your voice teacher understood scales and chords of the different keys.
Yeah.
And practiced them. Yes, absolutely. And we just had that happen at church on Sunday. At church on Sunday, our pastor decided he was going to play guitar, and the contemporary pianist was accompanying him, and he forgot to put this thing on that changed the key of the guitar. And so they had practiced in one key. And they got up there and they played the entire thing in a different key that wasn't what was written. And the pastor then stopped and said, "Boy, Greg, you sure are good. We didn't even practice it in that key. It's not written in that key." Now I'll put my, whatever that thing is for the guitar that lowers it. Yeah. Let me put this thing on and we'll try again. Because Greg was looking a little lost, had missed a few notes, but boy, he did his best. It was really pretty good. For not having practiced it in that key or totally caught off guard. So this is what I want to tell you about the order of sharps. I made a notation on here about the seventh note, the note right before tonic. It's the second to last note of the scale. The seventh note of every scale is called the leading tone. The leading tone is a really important note, and I'm going to play it so you can hear it in just a second, because it helps really lead you toward the last tonic, the higher tonic. It's also a really important note in chords, especially that 5/7 we've been doing, because it also leads you towards the tonic chord, the one chord. The seventh note is also very interesting in scales, because when you're doing major sharp scales, it's always the one that you add the sharp to. So if you notice that G scale in the second line is written out, where they added the sharp was the F sharp. When we play the D scale, we're going to keep the F sharp, and what sharp we're going to add is the seventh note. When we do the A scale, we're going to add, the new sharp is going to be the seventh note of the A scale. And every time we're going to add the leading tone sharp. That's what's going to always be our new sharp. And so that's just an interesting thing that's how it always works, because it makes it easy to figure out the new sharp. So I like to point that out. That's something that it's very interesting. Some people who are analytical figure that out. And some people like me, I had to have it pointed out to me like 5 years later. I never figured it out. So I just like to point that out, because that helps you figure out, oh yeah, I got to make sure to sharp the leading tone. That's where the new sharp is going to be. So And I want to play the leading tone for you for a second because this is very interesting to hear. So here I am in the key of C. Can you hear it? Can you hear the tonic even though I didn't play it? Let me play it one other way. Don't you want to hear it? Don't you? Let me play it another way. Do you hear it? You really want it, don't you?
You gotta have that.
Don't you? You want it, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. You gotta have
That's
that finishing
because of
tone.
that leading tone. The leading tone is leading you to tonic. Now, if I did another chord, it's just not as strong. You kind of want to hear it, but that pull just isn't really there. But when you have that leading tone, it's just that half step from the note that's a half step below tonic to tonic. It's very, very strong. And that's one of the reasons why this major scale has become the scale that's so popular to write music in. Because of this leading tone, it leads you back to that tonic. It just pulls you back. So it's just very, very popular. Okay, one other thing, and then we're going to play, is this. Is the order of sharps. So C has no sharps, no flats, but there's always, the first sharp is always F. And then the second sharp is always a fifth above. So the second sharp is always C, and the third sharp is always a fifth above. It's G.
G.
After G,
Yeah.
let's go D, and then A, and then E, and B. There are 7 sharps because there's 7 white notes, but I just want to tell you, and Ellie's will attest to this because she's played some pretty hard music, B is honestly not used very much. I have played maybe 2 pieces or 3 with a B sharp in it. Now, we were just talking about E. If you play white note E and go to E sharp, it's white note F. Well, why would a composer ever use that? But that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sharps. Ellie will attest with me that we use 6 sharps quite a bit. It's actually a pretty popular key. It's very interesting that 6 sharps with E sharp would be a popular key, but it actually is. And then the key that has 5 sharps is also really, really popular. So 5 and 6 sharps are popular, and especially with piano players, and I have a reason why.
You're confusing me now.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sharps.
You're saying 6 sharps is E,
well,
but it's really F.
Yes,
sharp.
it is. Yes, it is. 6 sharps has E sharp in it. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate your help.
Oh, all right. Okay, I understand that. Then. Okay,
So,
and then 5 sharps
has A sharp. It has
has A
these
sharp.
5.
Yeah.
But it is the key of B. You're right. Thank you for helping me.
Okay.
Yes, Judy, did you want to?
Well, I'm still confused about what this note in the key of F.
The key of F sharp.
Yes.
The 6th sharp.
Key of F sharp. Okay, so what if I were playing
Yes.
the E?
So
I'm
you're
looking
asking
at
about the second to last box right here.
Well, actually, this box this on the key of F sharp. I'm looking at this.
Oh, F sharp.
You know,
Oh, pardon me.
see,
Am I doing the wrong
What would I put in the bottom? What would I
That
put
one right
right there? What note would that be?
E sharp.
E sharp. Okay, so E sharp is really F.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's a really good question. So that box, the one next to F sharp on the last line, has to be E sharp instead. You can't. It is F. It is, but you can't call it F because in a scale you can't have F sharp and F. Because otherwise you would have
Why can't?
D sharp, F, F sharp, and you would have no E. And in scales, we have every single letter in a row, always, theoretically speaking. Now, mentally, does it feel like F? Well, it sure feels like F. Does it sound like F to you? Sure. But theoretically speaking, and when you see it in a piece of music, it's going to be E sharp. Thank you. But are you going to think of it as F for the first 7 or 8 years you play it? Yes. Eventually, your brain will finally think of that note as E sharp. I don't know, it might take 10 years. I mean, it took me a long time to finally think of E sharp as E sharp rather than F.
Whether I do or not.
I know, that'll be an interesting thing for you to think about this week, won't it?
Yeah, I don't know whether I do or not.
But, see, you've got to at least know that they're going to call it E sharp. I can't lie to you and tell you, oh, well, that's F. Because it's not. And composers aren't going to call it that. I don't want to goof you up, you know. I can't give you the Pollyanna version. Right? But this is what I wanted to tell you. I think the reason why composers use 5 sharps and then 6 sharps a lot is because when you play and you use all 5 black notes, and then of course 6 sharps is still all 5 black notes, it feels good to play those black notes. It actually feels good to play that scale. 5 sharps is B scale. B scale is actually the easiest scale to play. And the F sharp scale is actually the next easiest. It's a very easy scale to play. It's not an easy scale to read. When you see it, you go, "Whoa, that's really hard." But if I showed you how to play it without reading it, I didn't show you the notes. I just said, "Hey, look, I can teach a 6-year-old how to play the B scale. I could probably teach a 4-year-old how to play it." That's how easy the B scale is. The C scale is the hardest scale to play. The C scale is the hardest scale to play correctly and fast. The B scale is the easiest scale to play correctly and fast. Once I show you what to do. Okay, now we didn't do it yet, but once I show you the rules, you go, "Whoa, that is so easy." And then the way everything fits together with B and F sharp, they feel good. It feels good to play in those keys. And that's why I think a lot of composers use them. So it's just interesting the way it fits together. So I invite you in the upper, like right up here on this paper, to write like order of sharps, semicolon, and then write what the order of sharps is. So you'll have them all in one place. So the order of sharps is F, C, G, D, A, E, B. And I actually have a sentence that that I've had, I don't know, since junior high. Fat cats go down alleys eating. Oh no, I ran out of room. I always use bananas. Some of my students use birds. Bats. Fat cats go down alleys eating.
You said because it feels good. You're not referring to tone. You're talking to physically.
No, physically, B and F sharp just feel good to play. Now, there are interesting musicians who maybe can hear better than I can, because I don't really hear this. Hear F sharp and B as colorful keys that how they sound, they think they sound better than C. Now, I don't really hear that. I don't know, maybe my ear is a little dull, but there are several musicians, not just several, hundreds, who talk about the complexity of the sound. Nothing to do with how hard it is to play, but just that they hear some keys as more complex sounding than other keys and more rich sounding. So Fat cats go down alleys eating bananas. I guess I should start this over here.
Okay.
And it honestly, I had been playing for several years, groups of sharps and flats, before I even realized that this order doesn't change. I don't know why I'd never figured that out. Like I said, I didn't have theory class till I was in high school, but this order does not change. They will not trick you.
You mean if it's two flats, it's always F and C?
If it's two sharps, it's always
two
F and C.
sharps.
Yes, it will not change.